Hello, people of New World. It's me, Lamani. Welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to be talking PvE healing meta. I don't talk about this enough. I've ran more mutators. I've been focusing on PvE. It's fun. And I'm going to give you the builds that work, the things you should be doing, how to gear, all that stuff so you can get started. What I will say is PvE healing is probably one of the easiest ones to get gear for, get started, but probably one of the more difficult ones to actually carry out as you get into higher mutators. You can use pretty much the same standard set throughout everything, and so it makes it a very appealing role for a lot of people to take on. So let's just start off with build 1. This is the build you're going to be using: Divine Embrace, Sacred Ground, and Orb. And the big thing with healing is you are going to be focusing on survivability and not necessarily healing throughput. You don't need to do the insane AoE healing in the PvP scene. You simply need to keep people alive, give them fortify buffs, and you have so many ways to get cooldown reduction that you can keep pumping through. So when you're healing like this, the idea is that you have Orb on everybody constantly. You'll be using Sacred Ground and keeping that in your melee or anybody who's stacked up. And because you have so much cooldown reduction, you can continue to drop Sacred Grounds down and you can have 2 going at the same time. You'll then use Divine Embrace, and you do have that bounce potential of more than one target, take some damage. So if you have anybody that goes below half health, prioritize using Divine Embrace on them. Otherwise, it's pretty standard. We'll be going into Absolved for the mana reduction, Blissful Touch for just free healing. And when you look at Blissful Touch and combine it with things like Desperate Speed and Revitalize, that's where we're going to get a lot of cooldown reduction and where we'll have those potentials to get double Sacred Grounds. We'll go all the way into Sacred Ground because, again, this is one of our strongest heals. You can simply put down Sacred Ground and then shoot Orb into everybody and continue topping everybody off with Blissful Touch, and you pretty much never have to Divine Embrace unless somebody gets hit by something, which will happen. We'll take Sacred Protection just for free healing. I know a lot of people argue that Sacred Protection ups your threat and makes you have unnecessary threat. Honestly, I've never realized it. I've never had that issue, and I never go into Intensify, so it's just a more efficient point. We then go all the way down into Divine Embrace to Shared Struggle, so we get that bounce potential, and then we go into Divine Blessing. Having Divine Blessing with our Blissful Touches, our Orbs, our Sacreds really helps with topping players off. It's just this easy combo. It's left click, kind of turn your brain off and just dodge. We just hold Divine Embrace in the back pocket. When we talk about the protector side, we're going to be diving into Orb Protection, and you just pretty much constantly have this buff up. If you combo this with Blissful Touch and shoot out an Orb, you get this little bit of a burst heal because Orb does heal, and then you get the heal over time component to continue topping people off. And then on top of that, we have Sacred Ground. So it's just a very easy combo to keep your team alive. We'll go into Bend Light, we'll take Protector Strength, and then I like to take Protector's Touch for the free Fortify. That Fortify in PvE will pretty much always be up. And then when you combo it with how we set up our gear, we have Orb on top of us, we're in a very defensive setup. If you feel like you don't need Protector's Touch and would rather take the third point into Divine Embrace and get that rebound, I don't think it's very necessary in only a 5-man PvE scenario. So I just think this is the optimal build. Here is the second build. This is more of the AoE proactive healer instead of reactive, and we'll be looking at Sacred Ground, Orb, and Beacon. You'll be diving into pretty much everything that you would in the other build, but this is just a very turn off your brain, sit there, deal damage, and it's probably one of the easiest and more beginner healing builds. You can use this for low mutators. You don't really need this as much in the high mutator scene because it's a little bit more burst heavy and you would be wanting things like Divine Embrace, but you can certainly run this in the high mutator scene. I think it is a very nice build for speed running, and definitely one if you're trying to learn healing that you can certainly use. You do have to play a little bit more safe because, again, you don't have that burst potential, but that's what potions are for. And if your teammates don't avoid things, it can get a little dicey. With that being said, you pretty much have 3 heals over time on your targets at all times on top of Blissful Touches, and you'll be running Intensify for a little bit more healing. So we'll be going Absolved into Blissful Touch, go all the way into Sacred Ground. It's just free healing and then increases healing from our other heals over time. And then Desperate Speed and Revitalize for the freest cooldown reduction. We'll take Sacred Protection. And then I do opt for Intensifying this build since I don't have Burst. So what you can do is easily stack up 3 stacks of Intensify, then drop your cooldowns and just rinse and repeat and continue to left click light attack the target. You don't have to necessarily worry as much about, okay, should I hold Divine Embrace here? Should I use Divine Embrace here? Because these are just going to continue healing over time. There's nothing you're really going to be able to do to counter the burst. All of these cooldowns will always be active and they last for a long duration, so don't hesitate and be very liberal with your cooldown usage. We'll then go on to Orb of Protection, go all the way into Orb for the Fortify, the heal over time, and a little bit of burst healing, Protector Strength and Bend Light for free healing increases, Protector's Touch for a little bit more Fortify on top of Orb, and then we'll be going into Beacon and taking that 5 second longer. Technically, in PvE, you really don't need that 5 second longer, but there's not many other options that are going to be huge value. You could potentially go into something like Mending Touch to remove PvE debuffs, but it makes it a very safe option in case it does ever go down. I'm going to preface this, you do have 3 technical Void Gauntlet options that I like to use in PvE. This first one is going to be one of the most default, great for mutators to set up clump kills and provide some additional healing. We'll be using Scream, Oblivion, and Orb. I'll say in general, VG is just the huge utility and extra healing pick. There's pretty much no other option for healing in the PvE scene that is going to give you as much value to a healing role. So with this first build, you'll be taking all the crit chance and cooldown reduction based on crit, and then we'll be going in for a little bit more of the empower skills, and we'll take Leeching Agony just for some free healing on ourselves. I will say, some people say, oh, take Forsaken Pact. The amount of uptime you will have on the 10% damage below 50% mana, it's just constantly overvalued in a lot of builds, and it's kind of a don't take this pick, but you think it has some value. In general, there's other things with more utility. So we'll be going into Scream and Oblivion all the way. Scream you can use for that little bit of additional Fortify if too many enemies get up in your face, but again, it's great for some free damage and setting up a clump after somebody stuns, grab wells, or potentially stunning somebody before they hit the barrels of Dynasty. With Oblivions, a good healer will constantly drop their Oblivions into melee. You'll sit there and get your cooldown reduction from holding your right click and going like this, if you remember back in the days, because if we jump over to the Decay side, we take Orb of Decay, but we'll also be taking Refreshing Harvest, and we'll take Mending Evasion. Refreshing Harvest is going to allow you to sit there and right click and get cooldown reduction, so you can actually get out more Oblivions in your downtime, or get out Orbs for more rending or more damage, or even a Scream if you needed it. We'll then also take Mending Evasion because when you hit max mana, you can roll and you get a very sizable heal that will keep you topped off while doing this, even though you're losing your health. So with Orb, it's important to note you should be sending out Orb, and on the way back, it'll turn green, and then as it goes through players, you can actually burst it so that they get the heal over time component, but then they also get burst healed additionally, so they get both healing aspects. You can also use Orb and send it out and then double pop it right away to just get Void Caller stacks on big AoE packs, or set up a double rend. And then just talking about Void Caller is going to act like a pseudo beacon Sacred Ground. It'll, if you have the Void Gauntlet on, function like a beacon, follow you around, but also do damage and a very good chunk of healing. If you swap weapons, it will then turn into like a Sacred Ground. It will drop on the ground but continue to heal players. So use this to your healing advantage as well. All right, the second build is my personal favorite. You still play it very similarly, but we're going to be going into Glimpse of the Void and taking Essence Rupture. So when we look over at that Annihilation piece, it's going to be Oblivion and the same concepts. Crits, cooldown reduction, and we use Oblivion for our team. We'll then head over to Decay, and we'll be using that Orb to detonate for healing, to provide healing over time, and to just get us more stacks in general. We'll then use Essence Rupture, which in my opinion is one of the freest, most powerful heals in all of PvE, because we throw it on the target, and anybody hitting that target, they heal for 20% of the damage done. It then will pop for 80% weapon damage when it ends after the 10-second duration. So it also applies stamina when hitting the afflicted target, but the thing is, with all of our cooldown reduction, if you throw another Essence Rupture on top of it, it'll pop the first Essence Rupture for that free healing and continue the duration. So when we're using something like Glimpse of the Void, it gets interesting. The thing that gets difficult is on a single target fight. So what you'll do is you'll want to hit the target with Essence Rupture first. You can put down Oblivion for the damage, and then you want to double pop Orb. So you throw it, it'll hit the target and instantly damage pop it. You have 2 chances there to crit. Any crits that you hit there will then contribute to your cooldown reduction, and then you can hold right click to get the rest of the cooldown reduction you need. You can then heavy attack and get full cooldown reset so that you can continue with another Oblivion and then have high uptime on your Orb Rend. And then throw out an Essence Rupture for additional healing, and then rinse and repeat. Now this third build is a personal favorite of mine that I haven't really broken out and I want to make a dedicated video on, but it's going to use Blade, Orb of Decay, and Essence Rupture. You do miss out on the Oblivion free damage, but this is a build that will allow you to fully heal your party only with your Void Gauntlet out. All right, so let's dive into attributes. Personally, I feel best with a 300 focus, 200 con split, and then putting the rest into focus as I get higher gear. I just think the defensiveness is the real priority here instead of raw healing output. So I think in all cases, this is the best PvE standard. All right, let's talk weapons now. For life staff, personally, I just use the glowing life crystal staff. This is going to be out of Mutated Dynasty off the last boss. You'll be getting your blessed bonus. We'll take refreshing move and refreshing divine embrace. It's great for those refreshing divine embrace builds. And then if you're going to be using an AoE healing setup, instead of refreshing divine embrace, use mending protection. This one's going to cost you a pretty penny because there's not a PvE drop for it. For your void gauntlet, I personally like to go blessed, keen, and then X other perk. I have a keen speed one because I use it for PvP too, but there's other options. You could go into orb, you could go into voracious blade if you're going to do a blade build, or just look for another damage perk if you don't care about PvP. In both of these weapons, we will just want a diamond. Even when I'm blading, I run a diamond because I want that additional healing potential. On gear, if you want this to be a simple section, just use all sagacious pieces and you'll have a good day, except for boots, so we can pivot out and go into like a medium piece for some more defensiveness. But otherwise, we're gonna be looking for things like elemental aversion, refreshing, and then we need perks. So we're going to be keeping sacred ground and mending protection here in a single target group targeted build. Shirking forward is another great one too. On my amulet, I'm going to be using health, and then I use stam recovery. You can pretty much opt for whatever. And then we look for any kind of protection. So this could be ice protection for an ice mutator, fire protection, arcane protection, nature protection, anything like that. In our ring, we don't need hardy. I end up running sacred hardy all the time, but we need sacred. I think other things that would be good, you could go sacred, keen leech, sacred leeching. You could throw in hardy if you're going to be playing like that. It doesn't really have a ton of value. You could maybe throw in something like brilliant if you wanted. Ring is an interesting one. Basically, what you really need is sacred. And then for the earring, we're looking for refreshing toast, healthy toast, refreshing. I'll say this, I'll eat my words. I used to, kind of undervalue healthy toast. This perk is insane. It is absolutely insane. It's great to have when you combo it with a health potion and a mana potion at the same time. Okay, so that's everything I have for you today. And if there's one thing I want to just talk about is with PvE, it's a very easy thing to set up with healing. You can use pretty much one standardized gear set for healing because you don't need ward gear. You're in range, you can dodge, and you got enough protection. I think for a lot of people, at least myself, I was inclined to not run mutators because I wasn't wanting to stack up a bunch of ward gear and get all this other stuff. When I think about it in that context and play it in this way, it makes PvE much more inviting and much more feasible instead of just sitting there PvPing and not going for my umbral shards. So don't think about it. Don't hesitate. Just dive into it. To be honest, mutators are super easy. I was scared they were going to be hard. They are very simple, and it's a great way to practice your healing. I think it's a great way to balance your gameplay. If you're a solid PvP gamer, you should also learn the PvE so that you can kind of get a sense of timing of things, get better with group play, and making sure when to use sacreds and where to use sacreds and making sure that they're stacked up. It's just a great way to keep you on your toes, but get your umbral shards, and also another great way to get gold because, when you're PvP rolling for gear all the time, you lose a lot of gold. I hope this helps. This is a video that kind of makes me feel like I'm going back to my old roots a little bit. So I think this is how I'm going to do videos from now on. Let me know how you like this format. I like talking. I apologize for longer videos, but it makes me happier and makes it more enjoyable. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And thank you to every single one of you beautiful people for being you. Hit the links down below. If you need anything, send me a Discord DM. Peace.